Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. We're going to review Little Women, Greta Gerwig's adaptation of the many adapted classic novel Little Women.
The movie's about the four Marsh sisters, a little gang of sisters, and their little quaint Christmas family. And it's mainly about Jo, who wants to be a writer, and it's about her like coming to terms with this dream as she gets older. Like, is this gonna work for me? And also, like, do I want a man in my life? Like, how are men gonna play a role in my life? How is my writing gonna play a role in my life? The second biggest role in this movie is Amy, that's played by Florence Pugh. She also has a dream. She wants to be a painter.
This is my first dive into Little Women in any form.
Very uncultured, you might say.
Yeah. I came away with a really good understanding of how this book would inspire so many and, carry across generations and why people love it so much.
The Little Women in this movie, not so little casting wise, but
they seem to cast them for like their oldest age and they just had to act like they were younger. For that reason, you get to see Florence Pugh acting like a 13-year-old.
Look, I think it was a little weird. Florence Pugh is excellent as a 13-year-old, okay? It was accurate towards a 13-year-old, but Florence Pugh has like a very like deep, more like alto voice. The only sister who feels like young is the youngest one. She was maybe the best cast because it looked like age appropriate too, and I thought her performance was just as good as everybody else's. Saoirse Ronan, fucking perfect. Emma Watson. We didn't need this. It could have gone to somebody else. I would have rather seen a non-celebrity here. Her big like facial expressions, like Beauty and the Beast stuff, wasn't working for me. You probably don't know that Bob Odenkirk is in the movie, but that was like, oh, okay, it came out of nowhere. Didn't like that.
I thought that was funny that Bob Odenkirk was in it.
Perfectly fine casting.
And Timothée Chalamet, though, excellent in the movie. I heard some rumors that he was like miscast, and I was like, what are you talking about? This is perfect.
I wouldn't even say rumor. Like, people legitimately keep saying that he's like miscast, out of place, or he's not old school enough. I haven't seen the casting in the past. I'm sure it has been that way, where it's a older, like more beefy guy, like trying to court a lady, and he's more masculine. But whatever this character is my first time with it. It worked really well, and he was excellent in the movie.
It was great casting because you bought that like he could hang out with like the sisters and just be some sort of extension of their family. And he was really fun. A lot of fun to be had in this movie. It's kind of a Christmas bash sometimes.
Oh my.
Because it's very celebratory and warm, and it's about family. And at first I was like, is this movie escapism? Because it's like transporting you in this like fluffy world. The movie's like trying to like hug you or something.
It's like about the warmth that the sisters have, and it's trying to celebrate that. A lot of the movie's like a tribute to that. So it's definitely about like the warmth of childhood. In their childhood, they were allowed to explore these passions and like be individuals, and so that's like why the Marsh House is so fantastic, is because they were allowed to be women, they were allowed to be independent and have these like different desires, and so they grew up to be different people. And then it's about how like society kind of creeps into their lives and influences them, and how they're forced to like come up with who they are, maybe before they're ready to give up on their dreams. One of the best parts of the movie for me was like connecting with how your dreams and your ambitions change with the world you're growing up in. You start out with these passions, but then you decide like something else might be a better life for you, or like maybe I can get a better life by doing this or this because this is where the money is, or this is who I want to be with. I don't think Greta Gerwig was criticizing the characters who did choose to more conform and who ended up like with the boys or left their dreams behind. I don't think she was criticizing them, and I really appreciated that, because these were still women making very rational decisions at the time with what to do with their lives, and they weren't weak and they weren't giving up on it. And at the same time, it celebrates the characters who do not do that. The real hero of the story is the person who resists it, but there's enough nuance where it's not like demonizing anybody who makes a different choice.
It was really good to connect with as a coming-of-age story. As Jo's character grows up, she realizes that society seems to want her to find a man and like enter that family union, go for financial security, but she finds that like what she really valued about her childhood and something that she wants to celebrate when she's writing later on in her life is the relationships that she has with her sisters and the warmth that her family gave her, and just the gifting that the family and the sisters all gave each other. It worked as a coming-of-age story where all these things that like make you happy about childhood are not going to necessarily be applicable going forward, and like how do you reckon with that, and what you feel deserves to be celebrated from your life. The act of this movie showing you that these little women, these little lives, are worth celebrating. It's not just about your achievements, even though Joe is somebody who wants to achieve big things. You know, I thought it did a good job showing all the great things of life. It's a very celebratory movie. It's a very warm movie. Greta Gerwig brought so much energy to this adaptation. And I actually watched a couple clips from the 1994 version, which I understand is very acclaimed. You know, in comparison, that movie is so dry. Not to say that it might not work on its own, but like, if you compare the two adaptations, Greta Gerwig, like, what she did was she made it extremely vibrant.
Moist like a sponge cake. She took like a matzah and she made that into a loaf. A moist and sugary sweet loaf.
You can't make a matzah cracker into a loaf.
Well, Gerwig did it. Yeah, exactly. That's what the studio said to her when she pitched her.
Or you could just say that she's like the baking soda for a delicious banana bread. You know, without it, it would not rise.
But no one would attempt to make a banana bread without... okay. The point is, Gerwig is a superb director. She made a period film like nobody else has. I mean, I think often filmmakers will go for like a more cold approach to a story because they don't want to like impose emotion on you. And she kind of takes the opposite approach. She is showing characters being like very expressive all the time. You're supposed to get those emotions like constantly from them. And it's not supposed to be like, oh, this person's like shy and she's hiding like how she feels, and it's about how like no one can express their true love in a society that oppresses them. Like, this is the exact opposite of that. It's about very expressive people, and I love that Gerwig is bringing like this to cinema because other directors just aren't. You know, that's like classic Carol or Call Me by Your Name, whatever it is. I mean, I love movies like that. She's doing something different. Also, just the look of the movie is pretty delicious. The cinematography, production design, and costumes are all together like yummy.
Yummy, and they create a world that's like really nice to be in. The world building.
Well, you should crawl back into the movie's womb and just stay there then.
The cinematography isn't getting any attention from awards, but like, why not, honestly? I think that the reason that it's not being considered is because the lighting is like more remarkable than the actual camera work, I guess.
The editing, like the way she told the story with the editing and going back and forth but in time, but without giving you any notice that this is happening. I actually caught on to it, and I'm like terrible with that. I literally watched Blue Jasmine not knowing that there were flashbacks. Like, I don't know how. I thought, why is her hair changing? There's serious continuity errors here. And this movie, I didn't actually have a problem following. I think the approach is interesting, but I have a harder time commenting on like how effective it was for me. I felt like pretty neutral about the movie on like a personal level. It wasn't like connecting or like getting me in a ride. It felt like there were a few different things going on. It was trying to like show you all these different parts of a life. It was doing a lot of things. Like, it had a love triangle in it. There was sort of like a family tragedy in it. It didn't like squish up into like a ball for me. It just kind of was like, oh, we're over here and then we're over here and then we're over here and then we're over here. But I never felt like I was like on the roller coaster. And there were like people getting sniffly around me, and I was kind of like, I'm not really there. I'm not really with you or you. Like, I don't know what you're getting sniffly about. And that was just me. That's just my experience of the movie. It makes me kind of want to see it again because I know people love it. And like, I say objectively, like, this is a very fucking well-made movie.
I really loved the movie. Going back to like, does it work that it cuts between past and present all the time and that they intermingle this? And I also understand that this is a choice that Greta Gerwig made to like shuffle the timeline like this. And I thought that it was pulled off really well because, well, number one, it like kind of condenses like all these goodies about her life into one place. I thought that as it got to the end where, you know, she's kind of looking back on her life is now more cold, it made sense as like a reflection or like a memory piece. And Greta Gerwig actually said something during the Q&A, which we had a fucking Q&A. She said that decision was because she wanted it to reflect how it feels to constantly be evaluating yourself with like your past self. That's a better way of saying it than I possibly could have. I mean, I think that's what the movie's all about. It's like figuring out what in your life matters and like how to go forward with it and like how to make shifts in your life and like changing who you are and celebrating who you were and celebrating the people around you. You know, there's a great spirit of both individualism and collectivism in this movie, which I think is like kind of great. This movie celebrates a lot of different angles of somebody's life and coming of age. And I thought that it just kind of filled that all with a big bowl of warm soup. And I thought that the end, you know, how it takes that sort of meta angle, that was really brilliant. It adds a whole new layer to the movie.
Yeah.
And it's super relevant because I think it still makes sense that like women aren't valued for their ambitions as much as men are.
Yeah.
That's like something that's like changing. You can also easily see why somebody like Greta Gerwig would read the book and be inspired by it to be the person that she is. It feels like this movie and the book can like gift the audience. You know, I hope that it gets Best Picture nomination because it's missing weirdly a lot of nominations that it should be getting.
I liked Lady Bird a little more because I felt like I personally like got, you know, what this story was like about at the core of it, which was like the mother and daughter relationship. You know, this movie left me like a little bit cold, and I can't really say why. You know, but I think I'd have to round it out to 8 out of 10 from me.
I don't really have many complaints about it. I thought it was a very special movie, and I will give it a 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What kind of woman are you going to be in 2020?